Hi, welcome in. This is Jeff Patterson. There's a lot in this vid, and I tried to cut as much out as I could, but we're going to be looking at thickening the top, trimming the top, sanding it, a number of different configurations of sanding, from making sanding blocks that you can work with by hand, following a planer or a plane or a sanding stick or those kind of things, and allowing you to get it trimmed without doing it on a belt sander. I've been doing it on a belt sander, and I've been ruining boxes, and so I didn't want to send you guys down that rabbit hole, and so I've been working on new techniques that don't ruin boxes, and these techniques don't ruin boxes. And so check them out, and while you're at it, I've tried to find some tools, the tools that I like my little Machinist Square, my calipers. So I developed an affiliate link with Amazon. I really don't know what that means, but I guess maybe I get a kickback, but what it really allows me to do is put a link in my description and send you right to somebody. And so I found the calipers I like. They have the functions I like. Not all of them have those functions that kind of do the math for you. I found a Machinist Square that is in the 20s instead of the 60s and the 70s. And I put a link to Klingspor. I don't have an affiliate with them, but I was able to put a link to copy and paste a link in there for the Klingspor bargain box at Woodworkers. So go to Woodworkers, don't just click on it. Go to Woodworkers and look at all the boxes they have, because they're all different. So I hope this works for you. And so let's go look at what we did this week and see if any of this stuff is interesting to you. Talk to you in a bit. So here's our box. It's unfinished on this side. You can still see the glue from when we originally glued it together. This was the side that was down on the table on the wax paper. The edges have not been sanded, and neither have the cleats. So all that will get done later on. But for right now, we need to look at this and understand how we determine the thickness of the top of the guitar, because I think that's where the sound is really, really originating from and really important. So I have saved these sound holes on all my guitars, or a lot of my guitars, and I have not strung them all up for comparison, but I have 3 in this group. That's Del Puckett's. That's my favorite. And then there's a third one in here, which is very, very similar. Hard to tell the difference between my favorite and this other guitar, but it's mostly about graphics for me on these two. So Del's is the thickest by far. He is... Now let's measure this up and take a look. He is he's at 4.50 millimeters, 4.5 millimeters. So that's a 0.5 millimeter less than what the original thickness of the wood was. This is my fave, and it is 3.7, so it's under 4 millimeters. And this next one is at 3.68, so it's it's just a shade off of 3.7. So they're almost identical. So I'm going to go around the perimeter of this and determine the thicknesses. You want the calipers right up next to the body of the guitar. You don't want them out on the edge. And I'm going to write those thicknesses down on all the corners and all the sides of this guitar, so I have that to go by as I'm working. Then I'm going to take some really nice lightweight paper. This is 320 grit. And I'm going to sand in a pattern over the surface of this guitar. What I'm really interested in here is just cleaning it up, getting as much of the glue off that center line as I possibly can, and getting all the grain nice and even. Because in a minute, what we're going to do is we're going to get this wet. We're going to wet down the top of this guitar and raise all that grain up. And that really works itself out for later on when we're applying my stains, because my stains are all water-based. I don't want them to raise the grain of the guitar. And we'll do the same on the rest of the guitar, but we're going to get it all sanded and put together first. So it's nice and clean, and here we come with the water, and we're going to go over the top of it, and I'm just going to get it wet. And then I'm in the shop here in Arizona, so I'll let it sit there for a couple of hours while I work on other stuff, and come back when it's dry, and we'll get back on sanding this to thickness. So here we are a couple hours later. You could be doing this with a beefier grit, if you really want to remove some material. But you can't put any material back. So you're going to want to go relatively slow and be as accurate as you can. Another thing you could do is you could cut the sound hole in now and go in through the sound hole with your calipers and see how that works. But that's only going to be in that for that 1/4 area of the top of the guitar. So it's nice to be able to go around with your calipers, push it right up next to the side wood, and see what your thickness is all the way around. And that way you can work a little extra in an area where it's thicker and try and be as even as you possibly can. I'm happy here. I'm in the 3.7 millimeter area, and I could keep going and try for thinner, and there may be some guitars that I do that, but not this one. So now we're going to take the cleats down. We're still not going to be sanding the back of the guitar with the linings, but we're going to take these cleats down. Now I use cling spore with a heavy-duty grip in one of those old-fashioned oscillating sanders because those suckers can remove some material. And I can put that on top of that bump and hold it there without touching the inside of the top of the guitar. And I can get this thing down to about 2.5 millimeters, which I'm just happy with. That's still a little thick there. So let's just take it down a little bit more. And there we go. So they're all relatively even. They're still chamfered because I chamfered them originally. So they look pretty good. And they're lighter weight. They don't need to be quite so bulky, and you don't want them interfering with the neck as it goes through either. So we're going to take this over to the bandsaw now, and now that we've got the thickness to where we want it, and we're going to run the bandsaw down the side without touching the side. You don't want to scar that up. So leave yourself some material there, but take it off as close as you can to save yourself some work. And so I go down and remove all the extra material. And then this is where the kind of the bulk of this video goes, is how do you get in there and finish that top off to the sides of the guitar without destroying the corners. This is how I used to do it. I used to be able to lay my box on there and push it up against that vertical wall of sanding belt. And I also tried it on this thing, which is El Diablo, man. You put that on there, there's no reference at all, and you're just holding it in midair and hoping for the best. And I have ruined a number of boxes on both of these machines, and so I don't recommend them. It's worth it going slower, but I came up with a new thing, and you'll see it in a few minutes that, boy, it really takes some time off if you have the tools. So here we are, we're making some sanding jigs for this. I've taken some of that really nice 2x4 from the second video where we've recycled pallet wood, and it's all vertical grain stuff. I planed it off to make it square and sweet, and you don't have to do that. You could build this out of 1x material, 1x4 and a 1x4 strip, maybe a 1/2 inch or 1 inch wide, nailed and screwed and glued to the top, and you're on your way. So you don't need a table saw to make these sanding jigs, and I think they're worthwhile. So we're going to take these over to the chop saw and chop them into bits. But see that long strip of wood left in there? That's perfect for a sanding stick. And you're going to want a sanding stick. And so pay attention to that. Glue some sandpaper to that and use it like a file. Here we are at the chop saw. We're chopping it up. We're making a 4-inch, a 6-inch, an 8-inch. And I was going to make my long one 18, but I ran into a knot, so I chopped it down, and it's about 16 inches. And that's plenty long in the overall scheme of things. It really didn't have to be any longer than that. Then I'm taking it home, and I'm at my home sander now. I'm going to chamfer the edges. I'm going to wipe them down with some de-wax shellac and rub a coat of wipe-on poly on there. I want a surface on there that's a little bit more adhesive friendly, so that when my double stick tape is on there, that it has a nice non-porous surface to stick to and to hold the sandpaper in place. Okay, these have dried up, and they're nicely sealed, not overdone, nice lightweight finish of poly on there. We have 4 of them in 4 different sizes, 6-inch, 8-inch, 4-inch, and about an 18-incher. And so we've cut our strips with the straight edge, and we're going to apply those strips underneath in our 1/2-inch groove, because they're 1/2-inch strips, and be able to turn these into a sanding jig. The tape I'm using, double stick tape with a peel off back. Scotchgard will also sell you a roll that you strip off the dispenser, and it's double sticky on both sides. What we're going to do is take these strips of sandpaper that we've cut to 1/2 inch and apply them onto these in this groove, so that when we push this over the top of the form, we can sand along easily. So I've got my my 18-incher, and I think you want to be really careful. I should probably clean this up more, but you want to be really careful not to have a lot of sawdust in here while you're doing this. You want this to be a nice clean deal. So I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to strip off about an 18-inch piece of this. And apply it inside that groove. I'm going to set my way down on one side like so. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay. Yeah, good. I like that. That's good. Okay, now I'm going to peel that off. There we go. Peel that off. Now I'm going to take my long strip of sandpaper and I am going to put it on there. I'm going to try and leave some hanging off the end so I can use that if I need to. I want to push that in all the way. I've got a little bit of a kerf underneath there from when I cut this, and I'm not disappointed with having that kerf on there at all. Okay. There we go. So now you can see it. Nice, easy to work with, and it should probably sand just fine on a long surface. Oh, I think that's going to work out great. So this is a guitar that I haven't strung up yet. Love the graphics on that, by the way. With this, you can push this bass when it's hanging out. You can push it into the. By hanging out, I mean it's hanging out like that, right? You got edge on there that you've got to take off. You've got to sand off and get smooth. You can push this into a belt sander, both the sides. But with the neck here, you can't push that into a belt sander because you've got this lip. So that's the idea of this, is to be able to come in and finish this out easily like that and have it be a nice smooth joint. Now I've been doing this with a hand planer. I've been doing it with a sanding stick. We're gonna have to put together a sanding stick because you guys are gonna need one for this. Okay, so these edges are fairly well cut. They're kind of like you're gonna cut them on your bandsaw, or you're gonna cut them with a hand saw. I'm gonna show you how to clamp this thing into a vise, and we're gonna go from there. So just as an aside, I can't do it this way because you wouldn't be able to see much of what I'm doing. But if you're sanding this at home, lay it on a flat surface. Work the sides like that. You'll have a much greater stability, right? Or if you want to, clamp one of your tables in the vise. Get it up to chest level so you can see what you're doing down there. That works pretty good. If you really want to reef on it, put some clamps on it and hold it down. But like I say, if I do it this way, you're not going to be able to see what I'm doing, so I'm doing it differently, right? Okay, let's look at just one more clamping option here. Let's look at putting our vise table in the vise, clamping it down, making sure it's really snug. Put a piece of cloth on the back of the vise to pad the cigar box against the vise. Take a stick or a board, put it on the back, clamp it to the table. Take a shorter clamp and put it on the back side so that it's not in your way while you're working, and clamp it to the table. And now this thing is really snug on there. It's not going anywhere. So you could use a plane on the top. It's up here where you can see what you're doing, or you can run the sanding block on here and you can really work at it. So make yourself comfortable, because you can't do good work if you're not comfortable. And put them on either side of this so that the jaws of the vise don't dig into my work, but also so it supports the entire guitar while we're at it. There we go, that seems pretty stable. So let's see what happens here. Let's take our 4-incher. This is the 4-incher with the 100 grit stuff on there. And I think the idea here is to try and get it even. So when we're putting that longer sanding device in here, it isn't higher on this end than it is on that end, which is what it is right now. This is considerably higher. So that's one way of doing it. The other way is with a sanding stick. This is a sanding stick. I can come across here and work with this sanding stick like a file and really make some headway. This is how I was removing it, like this on the back behind the neck. And in all reality, this little 6-inch job seems to be working just fine. But let's try the 18-incher and see what we get. Now I want to make sure I'm not cutting into the top of that. That's what the experiment here for me is that I'm not at an angle and the edge of my tape is cutting into the top of this guitar, and that does not seem to be happening at all. I'm very pleased with that, but let's stick it to the end and see what happens. You could also use a hand planer. You know, if you're doing this, you could come in with a hand planer and take some of this stuff off. But you want to set your planer for lightweight. Yeah. And that's probably going to work out right till we get to the glue. Let's see. So that's a possibility too. That's working really well. Oh my gosh, that came out really great. So let's drop it with the final stuff here. This is a finished. Oh, I am so happy with that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you guys will be too. So if you do not have access to a belt sander, and even if you do have access to a belt sander, don't do it, man. Do it like that, because my corners are completely intact. And there's going to be finish sanding on this. So you're going to go over this with a finish sander. And boy, that is so cool. So there is another way of doing this, and it's a more expensive option. And I don't know why I haven't really thought of it before, but I hadn't. So coming up with this sanding stick technology has kind of led me to investigate other things that might work for you guys. So this is a professional carbide router bit. It's a laminate trim bit. And so what it does is it has a little bearing that runs along the side and allows you just to trim the wood right up to the surface. So we're going to try that. This thing was $30. $30 at Ace Hardware. That's kind of an expensive tool for a one-off. So again, the sanding jigs that we just made can be made out of 1x4 and 1x stock. You don't have to have a table saw to make them. And if you're patient, you'll get a nice guitar out using that technology. But let's give this a try and see what happens. So there's some variability on the thickness here, and let's hope that that works out. Okay, we're gonna try this end first. This end is the one we were sanding on. I still got glue on there. By the way, if you're watching this and you're watching my last video where I said, hey, don't worry about the glue on the outside, worry about the glue on the outside if you're doing this. As you glue the box to the top of the guitar, as you're working in there, get in around those clamps and clean up that glue so you don't have to sweat it later on. Okay, here it is. Let's see how it works. That's pretty tall. You can see that there. We're going to give it a try. Well, I gotta admit, that's pretty sweet too, by golly. And then you can come in with your sanding blocks and work that out. If you have access to that, boy, that's cool. Let me tell you, that is really cool. Okay, you're gonna want both of these. You're gonna want the sanding blocks, and you're gonna want the router, but you're maybe not going to get the router. You're maybe just going to have to work at getting it. But at least you have the technology now that you need in order to make that happen. That's really sweet. In order to make that happen, the in-grain one is not as clean, of course. Everything against in-grain. So it's going to require a little bit more sanding, but not much, boy. Okay. Hey, if you've hung with me this far, thank you so much. This is a crazy vid. Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. I got like 45, 50 different video clips in here from different places at different times putting this thing together. It's a hodgepodge, but I'm making these for everybody, and I'm not really very good at it, but I'm making these for people who don't have tools, people who have lots of experience, to people who are just kind of getting into it. So hopefully you people who are just getting into it are finding stuff that's useful, and hopefully you people who are really, really good at building cigar box guitars are at least figuring out this box. I found a link to a laminate bit for the router. It's not the cheapest one, but it's carrying the Bosch name. And Bosch has been a pretty good company, we'll see. They have some stuff in Amazon where you can buy 4 bits like that in different lengths for about $8-9. I don't know if I trust the metal on those, but the Bosch one has carbide tip blades on it, which if it's up to the Bosch standards, it should last for a long time and be a pretty good blade. It's like 13 and change. So there's a link for that in the description in case you guys are interested, but while you're there you can shop around, see what you can do too. So thank you again for joining in, and we have another vid coming up soon. I've already shot it, and we're going to be looking at more stuff. And I thank you, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.